Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories are this hour. Kaduna government imposes 24-hour curfew on Kaduna Zaria Metropolis amid end bad governance protests. Nigeria's federal government issues travel alerts to Nigerians over violence in the UK. Mali breaks off diplomatic relations with Ukraine. And details shortly. The news begins with updates on the end bad governance protests. The Kaduna State government has imposed a 24-hour curfew on Kaduna and Zaria metropolitan cities with immediate effect. The decision was taken after an emergency security council meeting presided by Governor Obasani to review the security situation in the state. According to a statement by the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arawan, the reason for the curfew is that the ongoing protest has been hijacked by criminal elements who have resorted to looting shops, destruction of private property, as well as public property in the state. The statement warns citizens to remain indoors while security forces continue to work to maintain safety and order. In the meantime, business activities are on standstill now in many areas within the Jos Bukuru Metropolis following the 24-hour curfew imposed on the metropolis by the Governor Caleb Mutfwang amid the ongoing nationwide protest. According to a press statement signed by his Director of Press, Yang Bere, the curfew became necessary to forestall further breakdown of law and order in the state. News Center's correspondent, Chizobanyan, quotes the governor as warning those planning to unleash further terror on innocent citizens to desist immediately or face the full wrath of the law. Nigeria has witnessed 4 days of intense protests. Citizens demand an end to bad governance and the crippling hunger crisis. From the streets of Lagos, the city of the north, the people's cry for change echoed loud and clear. News Central's Adeshewa Odushoga takes us through the 4-day journey so far.
Nigeria has been ablaze with protests as citizens demand an end to bad governance amid a skyrocketing cost of living crisis. From the 1st of August, the country witnessed a wave of demonstrations that swept across major cities, leaving a trail of chaos and uncertainty. On the first day, protesters took to the street in Lagos, Edo, Delta, Rivers, Kano, Borno, Bauchi, Gombe, Kaduna, and Kaduna State. The absence of eastern states was notable, but the message was clear. Nigerians have had enough of poor leadership. The protest recorded a level of violence, particularly in the northern parts of the country, especially in Kano, Kaduna, and Borno, forcing the state governments to declare curfew.
We are scared of weaponizing the protest, just as it was weaponized in the past. There are indices that it may be weaponized.
Don't you want to go into the place?
We cannot go inside because we know that as yesterday the police said bomb was planted somewhere. If we must go in, the CP will have to be there with us till we finish, so that when we die, we all die together.
It's not us that vote to bring the power. So the people who voted to bring the power, they should do the protest. Enough is enough. The Igbos are not joining them.
The Borno State government has imposed indefinite curfew in Borno State in the light of the security challenges we are facing in the state. As we are aware, this morning, some people came out to protest in the street. And on the eve of this protest, the Boko Haram attacked a village called Malari in Konduga local government, where 16 people lost their lives and over 20 people were seriously injured.
On the second day, protests continued, especially in Lagos and Abuja, as well as major states of the Federation aside. A few states, however, remain calm, with most of them in the eastern parts of the country. Abuja, the federal capital, recorded a low turnout at the designated location following a feud between protesters and the police force, who fired tear gas to disperse the crowd.
Okay, so my name is Onyo Uchi, or the Kanwa. I have my comrades here with me, Emmanuel and Michael. We have Faith, all of us are here to represent the Free Protesters Group of Nigeria. What is our position? We are here for an objective cause, a cause for all Nigerians. And everyone is at home watching us. This is my brother Uwem. We're all here for one Nigeria, for a cause that will benefit all of us. Now, what are we asking for? The government is asking us to endure. They're asking us to endure. The government is asking us to endure, and they're not enduring. How can a minister be driving with 10 cars, and you're asking me to buy fuel at 1,000 naira? How will you spend billions to build a house for only one man, and millions are homeless?
Following records of violence, the Christian Association of Nigeria and the Sultan of Sokoto called for calm. Kano, however, relaxed its curfew for Jumat prayers, a brief respite from the chaos. Despite the warnings, protesters persisted on the third day but recorded fewer turnouts in Lagos and Abuja. However, Jos witnessed large turnouts with demonstrators demanding an end to bad governance and hunger. The movement showed no signs of dying out.
In one day you came into power, May 29th, 2023. In one day you said fuel subsidy gone. And from that day, Nigerians started bleeding. In one day. So right now, we are on the street. This is the third day. You don't have to wait, Daddy Tinubu. You don't have to wait for 10 days. Since in one day you said fuel subsidy gone and Nigerians started bleeding. We were buying fuel for 200 naira before you came into power. And now Nigerians are buying fuel even 800 up to 100 and 1,200. You can as well say fuel subsidy return in one day.
To start with, the expertise order obtained by the government in some of the states portends a dangerous precedent for democracy. There is a provision in the Constitution that guarantees the rights of protesters to freely assemble and to express their grievances. That constitutional provision is what that expertise order seeks to curtail and is against any society that is built on the principles of democracy.
4 days after the protest broke out, President Bola Tinubu gave a televised address to the nation, calling for dialogue and calm.
As the president of this country, I must ensure public order in line with the constitutional oath to protect the lives and property of every citizen. Our government will not stand idly by and allow a few with a clear political agenda to tear this nation apart. Under the circumstances, I hereby enjoin protesters and the organizers to suspend any further protest and create room for dialogue.
With the president's address, protesters in Lagos and Abuja, who were fewer in number compared to the past days, though skeptical, dispersed. However, protesters could still be seen in some other cities of the country, like Jos in Plateau State. While some calm has been restored, the underlying tensions remain. How it all pans out eventually will unfold within the next 24 hours. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshewa Odushoga.
Operatives of the Department of State Services have allegedly arrested one of the leaders of the ongoing End Bad Governance protest, Michael Lenin, in the Federal Capital Territory. Lenin was picked up by the DSS around 2 a.m. on Monday at his residence in the Apo area of the FCT. DSS was alleged to have raided his apartment and assaulted him during his arrest. And to unpack this, I'm joined by our guest, and that's Francis Chilaka, a public affairs analyst. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Okay, let's get right into it. Do you think the speech made by the president addresses truly what Nigerians are going through? And also he's offering real solutions to their struggles, or just more of the same kind of speech we've seen playing around?
I think the president was being economically truth. He was not being sincere to Nigerians. He didn't address the core root of the protest. The president spoke as if he was still campaigning, which is totally unacceptable to any reasonable Nigerian. There are demands, there are reasons why people embarked on this protest. But I think the president, tactically ignored to touch any of those issues and went on trying to tell Nigerians what he believes he has achieved and what he believes he is doing. None of the things said by Mr. President touched on what the protesters are demanding for. And, like I keep saying, this protest is not about individuals. This protest is about hunger. It's about bad governance. And Mr. President did not address any of those. So for me, that was not a presidential speech. It was not the kind of speech anyone expected from Mr. President at this point in time.
How about his call for dialogue? He said he's ready to listen to the people, to have a conversation regarding their grievances. So how would you describe that position of the president?
Mr. President has been listening before now. He keeps telling Nigerians he's aware, he's informed, he knows that Nigerians are going through a lot. What kind of dialogue is Mr. President calling for? You're calling for dialogue in one hand, you're arresting people on the other hand, you are tear-gassing people on the other hand. So what kind of, dialogue? I don't understand what the president means by dialogue. This notice for protest was given 2 weeks. Nobody called for dialogue. The protest went into the 4th day. Nobody called for dialogue. So what dialogue is he calling for? I mean, when will our leaders stop lying to us and stop deceiving us? For me, Mr. President is not being sincere to Nigerians. So calling for dialogue does not hold water at all. If Mr. President was really interested in dialogue, there are issues that were raised. He would have told us some of these issues, what he's doing about them, and the timeline that he intends to work with them. But right now, calling for a dialogue is totally out of it.
Okay, let me talk about an element regarding, with respect to the speech he made, on Sunday. He talked about reforms being made in the oil sector and also touched on initiatives of CNG buses being rolled out across the country. What's your perception or impression of such initiative he mentioned?
Well, talking about the reforms in the oil sector, how many years down the line and how many months down the line, the MD of NNPCL has been telling Nigerians that the refineries we have will work. None of these refineries are working. The CNG, if you remember very well, is not the first time Mr. President is talking about CNG buses. Even when NEPA started their initial protest, when the fuel subsidy was removed, Mr. President.
Seems we're having audio connection with our guest, Francis Chilaka, our public affairs analyst. We'll try to see if we can still reconnect with him in the course of this news bulletin. But for now, let's take a short break. You're live with News Central TV. Thank you for staying tuned. The leadership of the House of Representatives have resolved to dissolve the current ad hoc Joint Downstream and Midstream Committee. The committee was set up to investigate the importation of adulterated petroleum products, the non-availability of crude oil for domestic refineries, and other critical energy security issues. However, News Central gathered from reliable sources that the House leadership seemed uncomfortable with membership of the Joint Committee, some of whom are alleged to be susceptible to undue influence by external forces. A statement from the House explains that the committee will be succeeded by a newly constituted ad hoc committee with the same mandate and will consist of honorable members selected for their expertise, competence, and integrity. Meanwhile, the House says it remains committed to addressing the vital issues affecting the sector and ensuring thorough oversight. A federal high court in Lagos has ruled in favor of the airline operators of Nigeria and 5 other aviation companies, declaring the sale of Nigeria Air Limited to Ethiopian Airlines null and void. Justice Ambrose Lewis Alago's judgment also halted the establishment of a national carrier, Nigeria Air, by the federal government. The courts granted all relief sought by the plaintiffs except for the 2 billion naira damages claim. The plaintiffs had challenged the bidding and selection processes for the Nigeria Air project, and the court has now set aside the entire process. Away from that, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, has given all tertiary institutions in the country 1 month to disclose all admissions conducted outside its Central Admission Processing System, CAPS, before 2017. Public Communication Advisor for JAM, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, who disclosed these at a press briefing in Abuja on behalf of the board's registrar, Professor Ishak Oloyede, on Sunday, said the directive is aimed at enhancing transparency and fairness in the admissions process. That his decision marks the end of the condonement of illegal admissions window, which previously allowed institutions to incorporate unauthorized admissions into the system. Benjamin highlighted concerns over institutions colliding with candidates to falsify details for illegal admissions, which has led to fraudulent participation in the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC.
Intervention of the then Minister of Education, who felt that it was not the fault of the candidate, that rather the candidate should not be punished for the offense of the institution. And he now gave a stern warning that going forward, any institution that is found to violate that provision will be sanctioned, even where the head of that institution at that time is no longer in office. Such a person will be called and prosecuted. But now, because of what is happening, we have announced repeatedly, we told the candidate don't accept any admission outside CAPS. But we discovered that even the candidate themselves are also part of the conspiracy. So we are announcing finally, so that in the event whereby anybody is found, we want to clear everything that is, whatever backlog that we have now. We'll look at what, by the time they make the submission, we'll look at the level of compliance. I told you we have something close to 1,000 in the past. We'll look at 1 million in the past. We'll see whether we're having that large number again. That will determine the next step that we'll take. But what I can assure you that going forward, after this opportunity, this window is given, we will not take any condonement again.
The federal government has issued a travel alert to its citizens in the United Kingdom due to heightened violence and disorder following recent riots. The travel alert was signed by the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador H.A. Abu Ode, on Monday. Violence protests erupted in towns and cities in Britain after 3 girls were killed and 10 people were injured in a knife attack at a children's dance class in Southport in northwest England last Monday. Following the development, the Nigerian government has advised citizens in the UK to avoid political processions, protests, rallies and marches. They should also stay clear of crowded areas and large gatherings and remain vigilant and self-aware at all times. Lack of training, citizens' engagement, unavailability of data, lack of technical capacity have been identified as some of the challenges in promotion of transparency and accountability in governance. And these challenges were brought to light during the Plateau State Open Contracting Stakeholders Training for state and non-state actors in open contracting. News Central's Chizoba Nyongwe was there and tells us more.
Stakeholders for this engagement were drawn from ministries, departments and agencies of government, including journalists. Participants at the training believe that if autonomy is not given to various states' Bureau of Public Procurement as a way of strengthening it, then carrying out their responsibilities effectively will remain a challenge.
Some of the challenges we found out is the lack of citizens' engagement and poor use of data by citizens, the lack of technical capacity, and actually procurement officers don't actually have the tools to efficiently put out and do their jobs. We also noted that there's some political interference in the processes, and this is why we're here to put our minds together to look for core and next steps on how we can find solutions and also make recommendations to the government.
If transparency and accountability in governance is to be entrenched, participants submitted that time is of the essence in working towards curbing its challenges.
My major take of this event is that it is really very necessary for the public to have an awareness of what the Bureau for Public Procurement is. If they don't have that awareness, then certainly I don't think there's anything that can be done about it.
There are things that naturally should come to us as citizens, but because sometime, maybe out of many engagements, the state actors may not actually be aware of some of these things. So I believe that keeping on engaging will wake them up to do the right thing.
With support from government, the boss of the Bureau for Public Procurement in Plateau State believes things will quickly fall into place.
Naturally, every government expenditure has a budget, and it is expected that the budget, if followed and implemented to the latter, the provisions of the budget for 2024, as I have seen it, is a good one.
Organized by the Accountability Lab Nigeria through its Anti-Corruption Innovation Project, funded by the United Nations Development Program, stakeholders believe that all hands need to be on deck for better results. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyuwi.
The United Nations Children's Fund has released alarming statistics indicating that more than 70% of infants in Nigeria are not being breastfed exclusively during their first 6 months. The report underscores the need for urgent intervention to address this growing issue, particularly in the insurgency-ravaged states, for a healthier and better population. News Center's Umaru Kirawa tells us more.
Lack of 6-month exclusive breastfeeding has significant implications for infant health and development. Stakeholders here gathered to highlight the need for better support in lowering health disparities and defending the survival rights of mothers and their children.
For us to close the gaps, I have 5 recommendations. 1, enacting the 6-month maternity leave for working mothers, so it will allow them time to breastfeed. We also need to have flexible arrangements, having crèches, having baby-friendly spaces for mothers to breastfeed, even in our offices. Number 2, we need to increase funding for our implementation of the maternal, infant, and young child nutrition strategy 2021 to 2025.
We are aware of the good initiatives and the programs of the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Welfare, and other line ministers. All these initiatives, we are seeing them translating to improve health and well-being for the good people of Borno State, especially our wonderful women and children.
The United Nations organizations are advocating for comprehensive public awareness efforts and enhanced support for nursing mothers to encourage exclusive breastfeeding.
This critical gap must be addressed to achieve the state goal of 100% exclusive breastfeeding rate. The 2024 Breastfeeding Week initiative constitutes a clarion call to collective action, emphasizing the necessity of collaborative efforts.
With deliberate efforts put forth to promote exclusive breastfeeding, stakeholders want the state government to review its maternity protection policy and adopt the extended 6 months of paid leave for working mothers. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Cargo clearance activities at the Apapa and Tinkan Island ports were slowed down as a result of ongoing End Bad Governors protests in Nigeria. A minimal presence of clearing agents is seen, leading to reduced cargo clearance operations. The Public Relations Officer of the Apapa Command confirmed the low turnout and attributed it to the protest. This was even as custom officers and members of the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria had earlier assured that they would be at the port for work. Will it be a risk to take delivery of containers and be on the road at a time of protest because of criminal elements? Well, we're joined by MD CEO Meeki Excellency Nigeria Limited and the clearing agent Abdulaziz Babatunde Mokaila. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Glad to have you both join me.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Okay, let me commence with Mr. Mokaila. Despite the official statement from customs as well as labor unions, minimal presence of clearing agencies seen at the port due to the End Bad Governance protest. I mean, just bring us up to speed. What's the state of things like right now, and then what are the implications of these delayed cargo?
Thank you for having me. The hunger protest has really caused a very big, it's unquantifiable. I have to just put it in that format. Much as Nigeria Customs Service and the port operators, terminals, put up a very veritable notice of their readiness to do business, you will agree with me that most Nigerians are very skeptical, and that has really impacted on the turnout. But to bring you to speed, as you said, presently business is fully open. Now, Papa Metropolis, the banks are on, because most of what we do has to do with revenue generation and banking protocols. Without the banking being very accessible to an average freight forwarder, there is nothing really we can do during the protest. But to now, everything is coming back to there. So the business is coming up.
How about demurrage charges? Are they still in place amidst the low turnout and shipping lines not opening aside online?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Surprisingly, the shipping line and the terminal operators have taken a stand that they were open throughout the protocols during the protest. Therefore, they are unyielding, okay, to give any leniency by way of demurrage waiver. Talk is still ongoing, at least to make it a kind of 50-50 arrangement so that nobody lost completely among the shippers. But presently, their position remains that they were open for business, and therefore there is no cause for anybody to seek waiver from them.
Okay,
this is going to cause a impact.
All right, let me move to my... All right, let me ask my final question. I just also point out we are only joined by Abdulaziz Babatunde Mokaila. What are the things you want to see in place that will fast-track cargo clearance in our seaports?
Yeah. I would like to see more deeper digitalization of the process, presently with around 50 to 60%. But the truth be told, some other practitioners and operators are still not catching up with the seamless digitalization. The human element is still an issue. We need to reduce this to barest minimum. Because without the contacts, most cargo still don't have easy access or exit out of port. So we need to work on this. And I'm calling on customs, being the lead agency, to do more by doing a lot of collaborations with other government agencies who has these conflicting mandates from the government. So I want to see more digitalization of the process and usage of trade tools. There are international trade tools that can be employed, okay, to make easy access and easy exit out of the port. We need to deepen that. And infrastructure. I see the MDMPA hitting the ground running. We need further deeper structure, infrastructure development. What we have is very archaic. Government needs to come into this. And I believe this will help the process in the long run.
All right, thank you so much for your perspective on the news. Babatunde Abdulaziz Babatunde Mokaila, MD Meeki Excellency Nigeria Limited. Many thanks indeed. Coming up, Mali breaks off diplomatic relations with Ukraine. We have details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. And now let's connect live to Port Harcourt in Rivers State, where the NDDC is set to launch the Youth Internship Scheme.